Real answers UpSurge, where the surge is always
Up.
We are here this evening. Lexi, can you believe it? It's our last show for the season.
Season finale. Jazz hands. Yeah.
And we start again. We start in January.
January, yes.
Been quite an interesting journey this season.
It has been. It's been fun.
It's been a lot of fun. We had this guy, the guy that said his mom knocked on his head when he was 9 and asked if anybody was in there.
Patrick Nelson.
Good. And the guy that died and came back to life.
Junior. Yes.
Junior. Yeah. And this lady now and her husband, they bought their first home with $250. They only had $250 in the bank.
Yes, Dr. Sasha Black.
You're doing well.
Yeah.
I can see her on all.
We've met some interesting people.
And then there was this other guy who is a life coach.
Paul, yes.
Newton?
Yes, Paul Newton. Look at you. That's awesome.
So this evening, we have, who do we have this evening?
We are interviewing Pastor Edwards,
The president of the
Ontario Conference. Yes.
And before we go any further, do you mind wishing Pastor Edwards on behalf of the UpSurge
a very, very, very happy birthday.
We just want to thank him so much for taking the time out to be with us this evening on his birthday.
Yes.
This will be a memorable birthday for him, of course.
And for us.
And for us. And we just want him to know that his gift is being shipped to him.
Yes, and handled by you.
This is UpSurge, real people, real conversations, real questions, real answers. UpSurge, where the surge is always up. Welcome back to UpSurge, where the surge is always up. We're here live with Dr. Mansfield Edwards, the president of the Ontario Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. It's a pleasure having you here with us, sir, on your birthday.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Thanks for having me this evening.
Yeah. This is UpSurge. And the tagline is real people, real conversations, real questions. Real answers. I'll be doing the first half of the interview. Pretty much I'll be asking you the easier questions, right? Because Alex usually asks the harder questions. So I'll be asking you the easier questions, but keep your seatbelt fastened. Don't get too relaxed.
That's okay. I watched 60 Minutes, so I saw something happen the other day with Donald Trump. He didn't like his questions. So.
Tell us a little bit about...
It's a real man with a real exit.
Yeah.
Yes.
We want to cover with you the various themes that we covered for this season. So we looked at success stories. We're looking at success stories now. We looked at racism. We looked at investments, all of that. And we know that you're a man of many hats. So we're trying now to put everything together as we close the season. But before we go into the crux of all of this, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who is Pastor Edwards? Where are you from? Tell us what you think we would want to know about Dr. Mansfield Edwards.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much for opening the door to that, because we could spend a long time talking about that.
Sure.
I'm from humble beginnings, from Jamaica, from the hills of St. Andrew. My mom was a teacher, and the summary of my life as it relates to the whole parental context. I would just say I had a mother who fathered me.
Wow.
My father didn't carry his responsibilities, but my mother doubled up on that, and essentially was the mother who fathered me. So a little lady that stood 5 feet and 1 inch was an amazing giant in my life. And today, I can tell you without any reservation, I would never ever forget her, because she laid the foundation for my life and gave me not just foundation for my life's direction generally, but a spiritual foundation on which everything else is built.
Wow, interesting. So your mother who fathered you, what was it like growing up without a father figure? Any experience that really sticks out in your mind? Growing up without a father figure, having your mother, of course, who you said who fathered you, but any particular experience that really it sticks out in your mind and gives you some sort of comfort, relief when you look back now as from where you're coming from.
Yeah, there are multiple. That's like a multiple choice question,
Yeah.
But I'll pull this one because it stands foremost. The first time I saw my father, I was about 9 years old. My father was a businessman, a successful businessman, a rich man. He had, electronic stores and so on. And he defined success from a materialistic and monetary perspective.
Wow.
Everything else was secondary. For him, serving God was not important. In fact, he never even credited the presence of God, the existence of God.
So your father had not it. You're a pastor today.
Yes.
And you did not. Well, you said it basically you didn't know your dad for
Until
the
I
first
was about 9.
9 years old. And when you were introduced to him, he wasn't a representation by no way of God.
No, not at all. But what really sticks out was that by 10 years old, when I made my decision to be baptized, by that time he had moved back to the house, okay, because he had moved out before I was born. And so when I saw him first, I was 9. At that time he was coming back to the house, okay. And when I made my decision to be baptized at 10, he told me I was becoming a fool.
Wow.
And he would not have a fool for a son. Now, this is a man I had not seen for the first 9 years of my life. But the bottom line was that he made a decision to throw me out of the house.
At 10?
At 10. So he did that.
Your father decided to throw you out of the house.
Yep. At 10 years old.
At 10 years old, because you decide
to give my life
to give your
Christ.
life to the Lord.
Yes. And so he proceeded to put me out of the house. That was very confusing for me at that age because, of course, as far as I knew the house without him for the first 9 years. He came in at just about 9. A year later, he was putting me out, And I'm the last of 6. And most of my other siblings, when they finished high school, they had moved to either to the United States or to England for, university studies. So I was the last one there with my mom, okay? And now he comes in and upsets all of that and throws me out. I had nowhere to go, really, but to my aunt's house.
So you gave your life to the Lord anyhow?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. That was a very dramatic way that happened because he locked all the doors and put the keys under his pillow and went to bed the night of the baptism.
And you're 10?
Yeah, 10. But at that time, there was a section of the house that was being added on. So there were no, in the islands you have your burglar bars, the grills on the windows. So there were no grills on that window. So I had already known my route to the baptism. And my mom and I prayed about that. And mom says, listen, always do what God says first. Everything else he will take care of.
So
Okay.
your mother supported your
She
decision
supported
to give
that.
your life to the
Oh,
Lord.
yeah. Oh, yes.
At the same time, she wasn't in any fight with your dad. She believed that God would see you through.
She believed that. And that's how she raised me. And so, of course, I had my bag packed with my baptismal clothes, and I exited through the window, left it open so I could come back in after the baptism. When I got back home from the baptism, which, was just a tremendous experience for me, because I had a dream before that of the second coming of Christ.
Wow.
And I was sure this is what I was doing was correct. So I came back home from the baptism, free in Christ, and hung my wet clothes on the line, and then entered through the window and went in, closed the window, went to bed. The next morning he woke up and looked out and saw wet clothes on the line and asked, "Where did this come from?" And I said, "That's from my baptism last night." And he took my clothes from my closet and lit a bonfire in the backyard, burnt it. The only thing I was able to rescue was what I was wearing and my uniform, because I'd started high school at that time. So my
and you were
khaki.
10 years of age.
Yeah, 10. So, my poor mom went through a hard time because she tried to intervene, and he really made it very tough for her. But I had an aunt, had a small house, and she never had a bed, but she said, I can give you shelter. I can't give you comfort. All that I have, I can
Now,
give
so hold
you.
on. So you moved out of the house
I was thrown out.
at 10.
10, yeah.
Your aunt said what? She could only give you shelter,
Yeah.
but she didn't have a bed.
She didn't have comfort to give. She didn't have a bed.
She did.
But she had a chair.
Wow.
And,
Wow. But before we have to break, we will be taking a break.
Yeah.
Very interesting story. We have here with us the president of the Ontario Conference telling his story, humble beginnings. He was thrown out of his house, of his home where he was with his mother. His father came back when he was 9. He decided to get baptized. His father threw him out of the house. And he's now about to go to his aunt, who can only give him shelter, but no comfort. We'll be hopping over now to the chill room. Lexi's there with Elder TK and Elder Henry. Lexi, can you hear me?
Hey, Pastor D, I can hear you.
Okay, over to
Awesome.
you.
All right. So we've just been listening to Pastor Edward's story and hearing the adversity that a lot of people face just from family is shocking, but at the same time, it's not that shocking. If you know what I mean. I don't know. Maybe I have low expectations on what people will do, but you don't expect certain things from family. I don't know if you guys just want to touch a little bit on what family will do, or the people you consider family.
That is a big one, because often, like, you find the most resistance from, like your family members when you decide to follow Jesus, because sometimes they don't understand why you're chosen that way, or they may know a certain way, like, in their lives all along, and then all of a sudden you come out with, I've decided to follow Christ.
Yeah.
There may be a lot of things that can influence their anger or their reaction towards that, be it cultural, be it past experiences, be it whatever it is.
Okay.
But it is very real to, and especially listening to Pastor Edward's testimony of how, like, even his father went to the point of even, like, burning his clothes. I mean, that just goes to show you that this gospel is that much of a threat to the devil, because if your own father can go to the point of, like, kicking you out the house and burning your clothes, just for the simple fact that you have decided to follow Christ, which is not a bad thing at all,
No.
right?
Depends on who you're asking. It depends on who you're asking.
So yeah, Elder.
Yeah, I was going to say, I totally agree with you. And as Pastor Edwards was speaking, I was going back into my own childhood. And I remember my mom was the one that was there for us. My father was a police officer, but he was never there. So it was always my mom. And one of the things that stand out in my mind is that as a young girl, we were not even allowed to play when my father was around.
Wow.
If he comes home and we were outside, it was 6 of us. So we were outside playing. He would come in and he would tell us immediately, get inside and get a book. Right? I also remember when I wanted to give my life to Jesus, as you were saying, I went to my mom and she said, no, you're just 13 years old. You can't.
Yeah.
And I never give up. I continue to push and to say, but I love Jesus. And this is the decision I've made. I want to follow Jesus.
Yeah.
And finally, my mom gave in, and I was baptized at the age of 13.
God.
So sometimes family members, the things that they do to us is not nice. But we continue to press on and just trust God as we move forward.
Do you think that they mean well in circumstances like that?
As a child, you don't think that. I didn't think that my dad meant well,
Yeah.
to be honest.
Yeah.
I felt at some point that my father hated me when I was growing up. But as I grew older, in my teenage years, I realized that here you have this police officer who was trying to protect us, but he didn't know how. And he was going about it the wrong way.
Okay.
Yes.
Sometimes, like I think in most cases, it's things that we don't understand. They make us fearful.
Yes.
So if, for example, your parents don't understand like anything that is, Bible related, or that's not what they grew up on, whatever it is, the natural thing is to always resist.
Yeah, and to stop it.
And to stop it and say, you're not supposed to go that way, or like, for example, your friends, your friends can just ridicule you and make fun of you because, they don't understand why you believe,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And if you're not rooted in knowing what you believe, you are easily going to be swayed and just get swept up. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a very important thing that we've just fleshed out here, just that sometimes people can stand in your way of pursuing the things that you want in life or pursuing a relationship with Christ. And it's just about your resistance and your desire to build that relationship with Christ. So we're looking forward to hearing a bit more of the story, right?
Yep.
Pastor D, are you listening? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I am here, Lexi. So we're back here in studio with Dr. Mansfield Edwards. He is now a pastor and the president of the Ontario Conference, but he has been sharing his story, his journey rather, and it's very, very interesting. So you got baptized, that threw you out, 10 years of age. You're now at your aunt's house, or almost there, but your aunt said it resonates with me. I can offer you shelter, but no comfort. What was it like at your aunt's house?
It was really, there were some challenges, but it was more of a blessing, because she was a real patient, kind lady. She was poor, but she had such a large heart.
Wow.
She was there for me. Although she couldn't give me a bed, she had a chair.
That's the part I wanted to get to. So she didn't have a bed, so she had a chair. Please don't tell us now that you're about to sleep in that chair.
Yes, I sat up in that chair. It wasn't a reclining chair or a sofa chair. This was a chair you sit up in. And so I think that must have been some discipline I had to develop not to fall, right?
So you slept in a chair?
In a chair.
Sitting
yeah.
up?
Sitting up.
10
And
years
that-
old?
Yep. And that
Are you
was,
a healthy human being now in terms of your bone structure?
that's what the doctor says. So yes, you know, I spent the next 4.5 years like that, in that context. Wonderful
No,
aunt called Aunt Vita.
No, hold on.
But
You spent 4.5 years
that was the rest of my high school
sleeping
in that chair.
in an ordinary chair,
Yeah.
like not a reclining chair.
Yeah.
So you slept like how we are seated now. That's how you slept
Yep.
for 4.5 years.
That was my bed. That was my bed.
Wow.
But it was, I tell you though, you know, it was something that helped to give me a sense of appreciation for every small blessing. Every small blessing was valued, because remember now my mother was prohibited from giving me any money or helping me as, you know, as she would like. She had to try to sneak some money to my aunt every now and then. The only pair of shoes I had for a long time was the one I left the house with. Good thing it was bigger than my regular foot.
So you grew into the shoe.
I got to the place because I saved my uniform. I had to wear my uniform to church because that's what I had. Okay? My shoes, I used to go by the shop and get cardboard boxes because the bottom had, you know, worn out, done its days. So I had to get cardboard and cut the cardboard, the shape of the shoe inside. If the rain falls, you know you have to replace it next morning, right? And that kind of maintenance was the kind of thing that took me through. But, you know, I can tell you, man, I remember I went to an all-boys high school, Calabar High School, got a scholarship to Calabar. And
you got a scholarship?
Yeah, so I was outgrowing.
So you passed, you slept in the chair and passed in such a way, got the high marks to reward your scholarship after sleeping in the chair?
I got a scholarship before I was put out, before the baptism.
You got a scholarship before at 9 years old?
I was 9, yeah.
To go to high school at 9?
Sure, yes.
Wow.
My mother was a teacher,
yeah.
and she had a leather strap, which was excellent motivation. So I went to grade 1, grade 2, then from grade 2 to grade 4, grade 4 to grade 6, then grade 6 to grade 8. So when I went to high school, I was kind of ahead.
Wow.
Because, you know, she was a really good mother, good teacher. But, you know, I at an all-boys school, when you begin to outgrow your uniform, you begin to go through a lot of teasing and so on. I endured that and survived that. But I tell you, I had a sister, Yvonne, in the States who kind of came in the later stages and was really, really, really helpful so that I could acquire
another
a uniform and shoes. Yes, yes.
Wow. So, went to Calabar, graduated. You're a pastor now. Tell us about that transition. Did you always wanted to be a pastor?
No. Okay. It was not my plan. When I was finished high school, I applied to University of Technology, and then I got a letter from the government that a scholarship I had applied for was approved, which was to do engineering.
And you got the scholarship in high school? In
Russia. I was to go to Russia to do engineering, and my mother contacted me, and she said, "Son, I am not impressed by the Lord that's where you are to go."
Wow.
And so I refused that scholarship, and I was accepted at the University of Technology. But then the head elder for the church came to me over and over, and he said, "The Lord has shown me that you are to be his servant."
Wow.
And I was reading some commentaries from Ellen White's writings, and And she made the statement that not all calls from God came via the same route. The call that Moses got at the burning bush, or Paul got when he was Saul on Damascus Road, is dramatic, but sometimes it comes in more subtle ways. Not even like Gideon, where the angel showed up. But she says, God will communicate his call to your life through other people.
Wow.
If other people can affirm that call and you listen to God's call. And that call came through Elder Buckner, the head elder for my home church as a boy. And that's how I made my decision to go to NCU without money.
You went to NCU without money. So, yeah. But you skipped grades 2, 4.
2 to 4.
You skipped grade, so you went from 2 to 4, and then from 4 to 6. So you would have made up a lot of time. I mean, you must have been pretty young by the time you were at NCU.
Yep.
I'm guessing. I'm not good at math, but I'm guessing anywhere between 15.
15.
15.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're almost out of time for this segment. So 14, 15, you're on NCU campus. Mm-hmm. And you're now on the path to become a pastor. Tell us about that before we hop over to the chill room.
Well, when I got there for registration, I really...
no money.
I just had my bag with some shirts and 2 pants, but no money. And the registrar said, we can't take you. He said to me in a very graphic way, he said, look up, you see those lights? It takes money to pay for it. He said, there's a business office here. And that is what...
A Christian man.
It's the money that keeps
the man
this
that want
going.
to say it, but it's
right?
possible that's the Christian man.
So I asked to see the president.
Another Christian man.
And I went to the president, that was Pastor L. Herbert Fletcher. Went to his office. He said, do you have an appointment? I said, no. He said, come in. So I went in and he said to me, what's the matter, son? And I said, well, I'm here to register, but I don't have any money. But if you have any jobs, let me know. And he said, I don't think we have any jobs, but just in case we have one, can you mop floors? And I said, when can I start?
15.
So I said, when can I start? He said, look, you see that long corridor? He took me out to the door of his office. He said, you see the long corridor going down? Can you mop that? I said, when can I start? And he said, okay, sit. And he made a call to somebody and said, I'm going to send this young man. Meet him at the seat of the scornful.
And that was the beginning of your journey, paying your school fees at Northern Caribbean University.
That's it.
An interesting story, very interesting story. Dr. Edwards, humble beginnings. He was thrown out at 9 for giving his life to the Lord, went by his aunt, slept in a chair, thrown out at 10 years of age for giving his life to the Lord, slept in a chair for 4.5 years, and he's now at NCU at the age of 15 without school fees. A gentleman told him that, hey, look, that those lights you see there, it takes money to pay that, so it's not a free run here. Went to the president of the school then and now he is he's about to mop floors to see his way through NCU. Wow. I'm going to hop over to Alexi now in the chill room. Lexi, are you there?
Hi, Pastor D, I'm here.
Okay, over to you.
All right, in the chill room, we have Lenice joining us now, and we still have Elder Takutswa. So we've just been chatting about, things that we take for granted, just listening to Pastor Edwards talk about his story with his shoe maintenance. It just kind of shows, the things that we just assume are always going to be there, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I can't imagine trying to fix my shoes. Like, it's just, we're tossing them out, you know?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it just goes to show like how much we have, and how much we take for granted, and the things that we decide to place value on, and the things that we decide to place importance on. I mean, I grew up in Zimbabwe. I was born in Zimbabwe, but you know, I could never have imagined a day that I went to school without any shoes, or you know, having to be kicked out of a house. Like that is just things that I've always had the privilege of having, right? Like a roof over my head, you know, shoes, uniform to school.
yeah.
I don't even know if my socks ever ripped, like, because they're always good, like, you know, always got brand new ones. But, you know, we take so much for granted, and it's something that we have to reevaluate.
Yeah, we would, in social work, you'd call it your unchecked privilege.
Right.
We haven't had to check it until now. And when you look at people whose circumstances you deem worse, that's when you often check your privilege and you see what you have. Just hearing Pastor Edwards talk about his hiccups in school, it makes me think about some of mine. I've had my hiccups. I feel like I've been doing my undergrad a little too long. But, you know, it's just that persistence and that determination to get over that adversity is something that I think that we can all learn from, something we've all experienced. I don't know if anyone wants to share.
It just reminded me of me back in college when, you know, like doing a 4-year program and having a 3-year-old daughter as a single mom. And, you know, I remember the days when she would be sleeping on the floor in the library at like 12 midnight, but have to get it done because I failed the first year and I'm not failing again. So you do what you got to do. And sometimes when you go through hardship, you learn to appreciate and you learn to work harder. You have resilience and you just keep going.
Yeah. And you know, like the hiccups will come. That is a given. If you don't fail, if you don't face adversity, you'll never grow from it. For me, like you know, you talk about being in undergrad for a long time. I'm like, hey man, preaching to the choir. But you know what? I've learned so much in the past 4 or 5 years about just meeting failure and looking dead in the eye of failure and just, you know, just trotting on. But of course you don't do that by yourself. Like that is the strength that God gives you. But in that moment, it's something that is horrible to go through because you're like, there's no end in sight, or I might as well quit, which is the worst thing you can do, quitting. But you know what? Like adversity will come, but I think it's we have to develop like, you know, a thick skin to be able to stare it in the face and just say, bring it on. I got a mighty God behind me. You know?
Yeah, amen. It's true. It's just that that idea of pushing through and knowing that you can learn things from whatever hiccup you face. For me, I learned how to be a better student. In the long time that I've been doing my undergrad, I've learned how to be a better student, and that's helped me in the long run, right? So sometimes it's just looking at how we can learn from our failures, if you want to call them that, so that we can be better in the long run.
Absolutely.
But again, looking forward to hearing a bit more of this story. Pastor D, are you over there?
Yes, Lexi, I'm here, and I'm just wrapping up the first half of the interview now. And then I guess when we shift gears, you'll be asking the questions. Like, as I told him earlier, you have the tougher questions. But you're at NCU now without money, and your only way out now is to work your way through. And the president says to you, you see that corridor? How long was that corridor?
It looked like 100 meters. It looked long. It looked really long. It wasn't that long, but it really looked long from where I was. But I was ready to mop that.
After 4.5 years,
Anything to
sitting
get
up in a
in.
chair, You're about now to mop floors.
Anything to get in.
Wow.
Yes.
So tell us about the journey to NC.
So yes, I was taken on that day. I wasn't given a mop. I was given a nightstick, a baton to work security.
Okay.
So they asked me if I think I could handle that. I said sure. So of course I got that. So he gave me a note and I got registered on the basis of the job. So I was sent back to the same man who told me I couldn't. I would have to have money.
Look at the light.
Yes. So I went back to him proudly because now I have a document that says I'm legal, right? Okay. So I was registered, assigned a room, but he said something to me that that was very good counsel. He said, listen, you're starting at the rates that you're starting at, because you have no experience in this and you're just a student. The rates you are starting at, if you should eat 3 meals in the cafeteria, you would be eating more than you earn. So he said to me, be careful.
Whoa.
If you want my advice, don't eat more than 1 meal per day in the cafeteria.
So your first official financial advice was eat a meal per day.
That's management. 1 meal. 1 meal. So that's what I did. I found that there was an orange grove just below the campus, and I was told that you don't pick anything from the trees, but you could eat anything that fell. And I ate those spoiled oranges that fell. I'd do surgery, cut off the spoiled part. And I tell you, looking back, I'd say only God saved me from an ulcer.
That's a miracle.
Only God saved me from an ulcer, because I had 1 meal per day, and this was for the first 3
God,
years.
Because I've heard you preach. I see you walking up and down, and you're not bionic. You seem normal after going through 4.5 years, from 10 to 14, heading to 15, sleeping on a chair, ordinary chair, then eating a meal a day, and to kind of catch up your stomach, half-spoiled oranges, and you're here sharing the testimony today.
Yeah.
It's a miracle from God. Lexi, we're going to hop over to you. Then you will be on the main studio, so you have a lot of work to do. So we're going to hop over to you in the chill room for 2 minutes, and then you will be on set here with Pastor Edwards with the tough questions on the next side of this interview. Over to you.
Hello? Oh, okay, Pastor D. Pastor D, recap for me. What were you talking about right before you threw us to the chill room?
So, you're going to do 2 minutes in the chill room.
2 minutes.
And then you will be here. I don't know how you're going to rush all the way up here.
It's going to be a long distance for me.
Yeah, you got to dash up those stairs.
Yeah.
You could make it. and you'll be on the main set with the second half.
All right.
With the questions for Pastor Edwards.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, we're back in the chill room. We're here. All right. So, considering the long journey I'm about to make, you two, is there anything in particular you think that we should pull out from Pastor Edwards' story? Anything you want to know?
Like I can tell you what I've gathered thus far from just hearing half of this story.
Yeah. There's a lot more to it.
There's a lot more to it. But you know what? What I gathered is like a full trust and dependence on God. And I don't think, like, when you're in the moment, I don't think that when he was in the moment of going through all of that, all of the things that he has spoken about to this point, that he necessarily saw the clear picture of, I need to trust God. Might be some days, maybe he might have, God, why are you doing this to me? Why do I deserve this? Or why am I going through this? But ultimately, just having to trust God through the most trying times can be the most difficult thing, but the most necessary thing at the same time.
Yeah, yeah. What about you, Lenise? Anything you want to hear? Anything you've gathered so far? All right. So Lenise is hoping to learn more. So just off of TK's point, whatever God has in store for us, because I have to ask Pastor Edwards, did you ever think that president would be in your official title when you were going through all the things you were going through, right? All these years later. So we're going to find out. I'm going to make my long trek back to the main stage. All right. Thank you. All right, we're out of the chill room for now. This is UpSurge, where the surge is always up. Came to my head. I studied black parenting, and black parents have a tendency to create what is called the home place. And your dad talked about that, creating that environment. And specifically, home place refers to the environment where you don't feel ashamed of your blackness. You don't feel like you have to be anything else, like outside the world. Inside those walls of your home, you feel safe. So can you tell me a little bit about how your parents have created that for you, and for you to feel proud in your blackness, to go to Guelph and march for Black Lives Matter? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it also helps being from an immigrant family. So I've seen my dad go through so many struggles back home because, well, back home being the Bahamas, he's Jamaican, so there is a lot of prejudice, and me seeing that, and my dad being so long-suffering, I couldn't stand to see it, and I just began to understand why people fight against injustices and why people fight for social change. And they always told me that I was beautiful, even when I came home crying because some girl bullied me because, like, I looked a certain way.
Yeah. So I know that Pastor has talked about your childhood. We talked about you becoming a pastor. Now we're going to talk about all the stuff that's happened after that. So when were you first elected to be the conference president?
Okay. That was 2009.
2009.
2009.
Okay.
But can I say something just before
Of course.
that? With regards to my father. Just want to throw this in so that he's not left hanging out there. Many years later, and this is how God works, because God turns the tables.
Of course.
Many years later, when he got up in age and he was now slowing down and getting sickly, by this time I was now about getting married. We got married, and I now moved, he and my mom, my parents, into our home. So now he comes to live in my house.
After he kicked you out of.
After he kicked me out of his house, I took him into my house, so he can now experience the grace of God. And didn't he experience that?
That is grace and mercy.
Yes. So let me come back to your question. I just wanted that him to really.
That's a beautiful end to a complicated story.
It was, yes.
Yeah.
So yes, I was elected president in the year 2009. 2009. September 2009.
Wow. So how did you feel when you were first elected? What was the overwhelming feeling?
Well, I can tell you, it was a humbling thing, and it was also the way it happened. It was to me a shock. Because I went to the session. My assignment was to be an usher. And I asked, because it was a camp meeting that ran into the conference session. And I asked for the responsibility to usher in and seat seniors, because I always have a special place for seniors. And so, that was my role. And I had come to this conference only 7 years prior to that from the Quebec conference. So, and I was just pastoring my first church here. So there I was at the end of 7 years, and I was seated at the back seat. And because I'd seated all my people already. And the chair for the nominating committee came and tapped me on the shoulder and said, they're asking you to be the president.
Wow.
So it was really almost surprising and shocking, you know,
Yeah.
because I never anticipated that. I was never ever I don't live my life like that.
Yeah.
Joseph is my favorite Bible character. And for me, I learned from Joseph's life, if you just trust God, he will lead, he will guide,
Yeah.
and he'll create your direction. So I just live my life like that. So
Yeah.
that was very surprising.
Okay, okay. So is this a position that you wanted or that you sought after?
Never even thought about it.
Wow.
Never even thought about it. As a matter of fact, leading up to the beginning of that session, I went into the office to have a conversation with the then president.
Okay.
To share with him my vision for the church I was pastoring.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah.
It's funny how God works. Okay, so do you feel that you have achieved earthly success?
You know, I don't look at life through that kind of lens. For me, my philosophy is always the question, am I walking with the Lord? Am I growing in my walk with the Lord?
Yeah.
Is my family in the Lord's context? Anything else, it is for him to lead me in that direction.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I really don't look at life from that perspective. Because for me, no child of God can face failure. You may have temporary setbacks,
Very
but the
true.
story of Joseph's life shows that God, you can have temporary setbacks, and when you think you are set back,
Yeah.
God can accelerate your program
Wow.
and take you beyond where you would have been according to your plans.
Amen.
So look at Joseph at 15. At 15, his friends would be leaving high school, yes?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
going on to college. Yeah? His brother sold him. His brother sold him.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
By the time he's 30, he's in prison. And can you imagine if he's reflecting through the normal human lens, he's going to be asking God, what's this?
What's wrong with me?
I serve you. You got me sold as a slave. You saw this before it happened.
Yeah.
You saw that Potiphar's wife was going to set me up. You saw that this would land me in prison. Look at where my high school friends are.
Yeah.
Some are now lawyers. And God said, watch my timing.
Yeah.
Acceleration. From prison to prime minister.
Look at that.
Wow.
Look at God.
So God could accelerate your program. Yeah?
So if we look at our life in a lens of earthly success, we're going to look at it in earthly standards and earthly timelines.
And earthly timelines with
Yeah.
earthly strategies.
You're right.
Yep.
You're right.
Yep.
That's an amazing perspective to have, something we all need to adopt. So just talking about setbacks and adversity, we talked a little bit on our show before about racism, and I think it's something that we've all experienced, it's just in different capacities. So I just want to ask about some of your experiences with racism. If there's a story you can tell us, something that sticks out.
Oh, yes. Racism. Yeah. I remember leaving University of Prague in Czechoslovakia, trying to get back to Florida
Okay.
to stop off with my siblings. And I didn't see anybody who was as tanned as I was
Of
in
course.
the airport. I walked up to the counter. As soon as I got there, the lady said, "You're not on this flight."
What?
You know, but let me not go with that one. I'll go with this one. I got a scholarship from the Swedish Agency for International Development to do a Master's of Science degree in public health with
Okay.
a focus on preventive medicine. That took me to a certain country. I will protect them. But there are people from mainly European doctors and other medical professionals that were on this program.
Okay.
Again, I was, I had more tan than most of the other folks. So when I got there to this university campus, for the first day of lecture, my chair was in the middle. We didn't occupy, it was a small group that got the scholarships.
Okay.
So there were about 26 of us. And so in the lecture theater, all the 26 chairs we occupied were just to the front. So
Yeah.
much of the theater wasn't used.
Okay.
My chair was in the middle of that. Okay. So we had the orientations and stuff like that. And at the first break, after an hour and a half, I went outside. I didn't know anybody, so I was outside and just walking around and breathing some fresh air. When I went back inside, my chair wasn't there.
Wow.
My chair wasn't there. I can tell you, it was in South America.
It was in.
So it was a Spanish-speaking country.
Okay. Okay.
But these were not Spanish-speaking folk. These were mainly Europeans.
Okay. Okay.
Okay? My chair was not where I left it. And when I stood there looking, somebody just turned and pointed to the back of the room.
Wow.
And I looked and my chair was labeled Negro.
Wow.
That one hit me like a brick because I never anticipated that, never expected that.
Of course.
So I walked back outside. The first thought was, hey, you have a return ticket. You could go back home and don't have to deal with this. So I called my mom, 5 feet 1 inch mom, and I said to Mom, this is what just happened to me. They moved my chair and labeled it Negro, and I'm not going to deal with this. And Mom said, hold on. Let me tell you this. Where they place your chair in the class does not determine where you come in the class. She said, son, I didn't raise you like that. Can't you see that God's giving you a challenge to top the class from the back?
Okay.
And she said, goodbye. And she hung up. So I went back and sat to the back.
Okay.
And I prayed. I asked God to take sleep from me. The first course was advanced statistics.
Wow.
And that's tough. I asked God to take sleep from me. In fact, they set up my room assignment. I was assigned to the only room connected to the toilet,
Wow.
and the rest of them in the dormitory. I had no roommate. But God took sleep, and I sat up at night. And I tell you, on this scholarship, if you made 3 C's, you're off. And I watched folk 1 C, 2 C's, and I was hitting A's.
Of course.
A's.
Of course.
And you know what? It got to the place where I was now offering some free classes at night to help people
Wow.
to stay on the program.
And they put you in the back of the class.
They moved my chair back up.
I bet they did.
God is a God who turns things around.
Absolutely.
You know? Yep.
Absolutely. I think we are out of time for our segment here, but we're going to go over to the children. We're going to get more out of this story when we come back. Pastor D, are you there?
Check. Yes, Lexi, I'm here. Are you hearing me?
I'm hearing you.
Okay. Coming down those steps, I know she could hear him, but she won't respond. I can imagine how it was for her running up those steps. So listening to Pastor Edwards' story, forgiveness, he has been saying a lot of stuff, right? But this thing with his dad, threw him out of the house and all of that, and then he's now in his house. TK.
Yes.
I'm going to ask you an easy question, right?
Please.
But how easy it is for us as human beings to forgive? I told you.
You said an easy question. I think I don't think it's easy for us to forgive, but it's the most necessary thing for you in terms of the other person first, and then as well as your well-being. Because just thinking about, like, for example, in a marriage relationship or in a relationship, girlfriend, boyfriend, you do something wrong towards your wife or your girlfriend or your boyfriend, or they do something wrong towards you, right? And it sits and it festers, and it boils and it ferments in your heart. When it finally does come out, right, it is going to be a nuclear bomb. And it's going to be devastating to everything in its path, right? It's going to knock down any progress you might have made in your relationship or in your marriage or whatever it is. It's going to leave a lot of hurt, a lot of pain. You're forever going to remember that blast, right? And that's what happens when we don't forgive. I think we're setting ourselves up for the inevitable nuclear bomb going off.
Avalanche.
Yeah, it's inevitable.
Wow. Lenise, you're a nurse, and you also have your own story, but what are the medical benefits of forgiveness? And I'm asking a twofold question on the flip side. And what are the adverse results of unforgiveness? So what, from a medical point of view, medical perspective, what are the benefits of forgiving? And I want you to tell us now also what are the adverse side of unforgiveness. How damaging is unforgiveness?
Quickly, I thought about, like, to forgive is, for me, I immediately make up my mind to forgive even before things happen. But I know to forgive, you have a peace of mind, right? You have joy, you have peace, all these things that God tells us is the fruit of the Spirit. And in order to be forgiven, you have to forgive others. So people who tend to hold on to things and not forgive, they end up with anxiety. They end up with sleep issues. Sleep issue end up with sickness, and it's just like
high blood pressure and all those
high
things.
blood pressure, everything.
Unforgiveness could cause high blood pressure, and high blood pressure could lead to stroke.
Stroke leads to death.
Stroke kill you. Yeah.
So in order, it's a lot of people think that, oh, I'm not forgiving them because then they get to walk away free. It's for you. It's for your peace of mind. It's for your joy. It's for you to be able to really smile because you're not harboring all these negativity in your heart that will cause you to be sick.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing, Lenise and the TK. We're out of time for now in the children. I think we have another 3 minutes after this, the next segment. We are almost out of time for the whole show and for the season. Can you imagine that? But we're going to hop over again now to Alexis. She is in the main studio with Pastor Edwards. Alexi, over to you.
All right. And we're back. Here with Pastor Edwards. I'm going to jump right back into my questions, and we'll see how far we can get.
Let's go.
All right. So you're the president of the Ontario Conference. What's next? What else do you think that God has in store for your life? What's next?
Well, let me tell you, I don't know what's next.
Yeah.
What I do know is that I'm a pastor for the rest of my life.
Okay.
Yes. So that will always be the consistent reality. What's next? I'll leave it all up to him.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. That's amazing. So I was going to ask, this is just a general question. Obviously, we've seen it in your story early on, but do you have, or were there people that put you down and made you feel that your goals couldn't be accomplished? Is there anybody that ever made you feel that where you are right now would never be possible?
Well, you know, I can say I turn a deaf ear to those things. We've got to be very intentional about what we absorb and allow into our minds
Of
and
course.
to influence our thinking. You know, the motto for my life is place no limits on yourself, because God places no limits on us. We impose limits on ourselves.
This is true.
So my motto is place no limits on yourself. Okay, that is intrinsic to with God all things are possible.
Exactly.
So for me, I really don't place any limits on myself. I don't. I really negative talk. I don't encourage. I don't absorb. I don't have storage room for that.
Yeah.
I have limited capacity, so I don't have any storage room for negative talk. Nor do I practice negative self-talk. Okay, so my self-talk has got to be positive and reinforcing.
Okay.
Always reminding myself that God has the next 5, 10, 20, 50, 100 moves ahead of me if I just trust him. That's why the life of Joseph is my favorite Bible story.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites too.
Yep.
Okay, my last question for you, maybe we'll get some questions off of this, but my last big question for you is, as somebody in a very important leadership position, how do you go about listening to that inner voice, following your intuition, when a room full of people could be telling you otherwise? And I'm going to specify more so in the COVID-19 situation that we're dealing with. You're in a position where you make a lot of the big calls. Right. So if there are naysayers, how do you know that you're doing the right thing? And how do you follow that still small voice in your head that tells you, no, this is what we're going to do?
Yeah, it is crucial to know that we must depend on God. So prayer, a lot of prayer is resultant in a lot of direction from God. And once I know that God is leading in the decision-making process, I know then that is not democratic.
Yeah.
There are some things, every leader has got to come to the place where he understands that his pursuit is not popularity. He needs to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And that's the key. So a part of my leadership responsibility, as is a part of the responsibility for all leaders, is to define reality.
Okay.
Now, if I define reality and show folk exactly what the real thing is, and they choose not to see that or accept that, then I've got to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And so in doing the right thing, it is not always the popular thing.
That's true.
But you do the right thing anyhow, because what you do is not always based on a democratic, popular opinion. Well, let me not say democratic, but a popular opinion. Look what's happening in the United States with some individuals who have decided they are not going to wear masks.
Yes.
And some leaders go along with it, and then we're having a kind of negative results now that lives are being lost by the thousands.
Yeah.
People have got to understand that leaders must do the right thing, operate based on principle, and do the right thing because it's right.
It's right.
That's all.
There's
no apology for doing what's right.
Okay. It's not always going to be popular.
Yep.
But you need to always do what's right.
That's right.
I stand by that. And I mean, just going forward, we have a lot of youth tuning in, a lot of youth that are tuning in and wondering, oh, this is our conference president, so interested in your story. And I just want to ask any words of advice that you have for our youth coming up who are facing similar situations to your own, tough situations where they might not have all the things that they need, or youth that feel that they want to be leaders and they're not sure about being leaders. Just any words of advice to them.
Yeah. First of all, don't define yourself based on what you have or what you don't have.
Yeah.
Don't define yourself by virtue of material or monetary value. Always understand the definition of your value is at Calvary. Number 2, trust God. Because a God who would give up his only begotten son, not just to give him up, but to watch him suffer, just to purchase your future and the security for your tomorrow, and establish and affirm for you a hope. He loves you more than you ever know. So don't trust. Don't follow wrong inclinations now. And the other thing too is to choose your friends wisely. Choose your friends wisely.
Okay.
So rather than subject yourself to negative peer pressure, always look for positive peer influence and choose friends like that. So you will find when you do it like that, you will discover that many friends does not necessarily mean an advantage.
That's true.
But if you have a few good friends, you're on your way.
All right.
God bless.
All right. Thank you so much, Pastor Edwards, for being here with us. Thank you for taking the time out on your birthday. Happy birthday again.
Yeah.
And I know you have a long journey ahead of you, so we're wishing you safe travels as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate being here.
We're going to be taking a 30-second break, and then Pastor D is going to be joining me on the main stage. I think we're not going back to the children right now, but we're going to wrap out our second season here at UpSurge. This is UpSurge, where the surge is always up.
Tell us some more about Carl. And in telling us about yourself, explain the mathematics. How you are 45 and you are married for 39 years. Yeah.
Well, the math works out rather conveniently because I also have we have 3 children.
Okay.
And the youngest is 30 and the eldest is 36, along with 3 grandchildren. 3 grandchildren. Our oldest grandchild is 12, soon to be 13, and we have a 9-year-old who is the 9-year-old and 18-month-old grandchild as well.
Wow. Yeah, so you are a writer.
Yeah.
We were playing some of your pieces during the break. Tell us something about that.
Well, I've been writing for quite some time. We started over 25 years ago with TKJ Productions. TKJ Productions, actually the letters really are significant because they're all my children's names, Tanisha, Javon, and Kadeen. And so we started TKJ Productions with the intent of doing ministry differently. We wanted to bring something that would incite, provide information, and at the same time entertain. So we started TKJ Productions with the intent of providing a medium by which we can engage young people, engage people of different ages, as a matter of fact, providing some entertainment.
Wow. Just wow. Such an interesting story.
Yeah.
I think God is with this program.
I think so too.
I believe God is with this program. We could have wrapped this up in a more classic way. And when we think about some of the viewers wouldn't know the challenges that we have sometimes just getting things together, right?
It's true.
But God has been good to us. We are at the end of the second season.
Time flies.
Wow. So what can we expect next season? Next year, I'm putting
Next
on the spot.
season?
What can we?
Well, I want to see some changes, Pastor D.
Tell me, like what?
I don't know. I think we'll maybe see some exciting new things. Maybe we won't just be in the main stage. Maybe we can take UpSurge somewhere else.
Yeah.
UpSurge on the road.
UpSurge on the road?
UpSurge on the road.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
UpSurge on the move, on the road.
Yeah. Who knows? You know what? We would love suggestions from our youth and from our viewers.
That's right.
That would be great.
As we get for season 3 of UpSurge, real people, real conversation,
The realist.
real questions, real answers. UpSurge, where the surge is always up, and it's a wrap.